Hi there, I'm Ashley Hunt, Senior Project Management Instructor here at Stormwind Epic Live, and I wanted to talk a bit about Scrum Boards. What they are, why they're so cool, why you can't live without them. A little bit of backstory, I have my PMP, but I also have my CSM or Certified Scrum Master, so I've got the best of both worlds when it comes to trying to figure out what is best in both worlds to utilize on my current or future projects. Well, one of the things that I really learned that I would apply no matter what methodology I was using on whatever types of projects is the Scrum Board. And what is so super cool about this is that you can use this following a long-term planned out PMP type of project or a shorter sprint-oriented Scrum project. No matter which one you choose, you can use the Scrum Board and it's going to make your life so much easier, and here is why. What is a Scrum Board? Well, it uses the philosophy, much like Kanban, of a pull system. What do we have on deck? Let's pull it into the tasks. Let's pull it into work in progress, and let's move it through the project life cycle, pulling the work toward us. The only difference between a Kanban versus a Scrum approach in an agile environment is that in Kanban, it's much more open to continuous improvement, adding changes, adding new things in the middle of that sprint or project, whereas the Scrum Boards will be reset before the next sprint. So Scrum really says, listen, what we've got on here is what we're working with right now. No changes until we reevaluate the product backlog before the next sprint. We'll do some backlog grooming and all that good stuff. Well, whatever philosophy you subscribe to, if it's a pull system like a Kanban, Scrum, Agile, XP methodology, or you're working through a long-term project where you're developing plans in advance, you're collecting requirements, you're documenting requirements, you're creating your work breakdown structure, and you've got your management plans and your baseline's intact, it doesn't matter which philosophy you subscribe to, a Scrum Board can absolutely help you out. Now, if you're not familiar with Kanban, or you're like, what is Kanban? If you've attended any of my PMP exam prep classes, you know we talk about Kanban in the context of quality management and how it influences the continuous improvement process and so on. Well, what is Kanban? It is the Japanese word for sign, signal, sign, board, but where that came from is literally a Japanese manufacturing system that was really developed with supply and demand. The components that are regulated throughout the use of a card displaying the sequence of specifications and instructions sent along the production line. All right, well, that's a bit of a mouthful, so let's break that down a little bit easier. Basically, it's a just-in-time methodology or mentality, and actually, in the 1940s, it was observed in a grocery store that the employees were only replacing or stocking shelves with things that had been sold. There was not a lot sitting in the back waiting to be loaded onto the shelves. They were really only replacing what they sold. Well, Toyota took that and ran with it and said, hey, listen, this just-in-time thing is awesome, and let's make sure that we only have the parts that we need when we need them and so on. So the Kanban philosophy or pull system, just in time, was developed at Toyota in the 1940s. But basically, the bottom line here with Scrum Boards or Kanban boards is that we are communicating on a better level through visual management of our projects. Whatever that sign, that signal, that board is showing us visually, it will allow us to better manage our projects. So we look at creating a Scrum Board or a Kanban. I mean, there's really no wrong way to do this. That's the great news. But basically what we're doing with a Scrum Board is saying, here's our epic. And an epic is a big example of what we're trying to reproduce as far as the deliverable or the end result. Well, it's too big. So we have to break it down into stories, which are then broken down into tasks. Much like a work breakdown structure in the PMP methodologies or environments, this is approximately the same thing. But we're taking epics, we're taking user stories, and we're breaking it down to the task level. Then we're moving things into what's actually being executed, which is work in progress or WIP. Once the work in progress is done, dependent upon your definition of done. Once it's done, it's then got to move and be accepted by the customer or the sponsor or whoever's signing off on that bottom line. Now, if you're wondering what the number system is involved at the very top piece of this, that's basically trying to figure out how many points certain amount of work is and being able to pull those point systems into work that can actually get accomplished. And the cool thing about this is it's constantly in motion. So for example, if you've got something done, it's going to move into whether or not it's been accepted by the customer or it's awaiting acceptance. And then we're going to move things that are in progress to done, dependent upon our definition of done, when they are done, which means new tasks can be pulled in to work in progress, and we can take another user story and break it down to the task level and constantly be utilizing that product backlog and moving things through the project lifecycle or through the sprint. What's so cool about this is it looks a lot like this. I mean, it's a completely visual situation. That's why the steps work. We can visualize the work. We can limit work in progress or WIP to what our team can accomplish. How many points or how many user stories can we accomplish during this work in progress piece? We can focus on the flow. This is done. This is accepted. We can move more work in, and the flow is visual. It allows us to focus on continuous improvement, or the methodology of Kaizen, which is a combination of two Japanese words, Kai and Zen, meaning continuous improvement. And it really allows us to see things in a visual manner. The absolute value of Scrum Boards is exponential. Much like Kanban boards, Scrum boards are going to provide visual aids. And like I said, as far as methodologies are concerned, unless you're following strict methodologies in your workplace on your projects, if this is something new that you're going to incorporate, just remember, there's really no wrong way to do this. This is a visual representation of tangible items that are updated on a regular basis. Now, the great thing about this is with a co-located team, is that board's right up in everybody's faces. It's front and center. It's always within eyesight. People, self-directed teams are in control of their own destiny and moving things around. There's very little question about the work that needs to be done, the work that is done, the work that's accepted, or any work that we're working on or is in progress. And here's a fun fact. Tuck this one away. The brain processes visual images 60,000 times faster than text. If you've got a project manager who's working on their project plan and updating their Gantt chart and holding meetings and all, that's great. But if your team can see and work through visually all the work that is in progress or is meant to be done, it is going to incorporate a significant amount of accountability on the team level, team engagement, communication, and the visual representation of what's going on in this sprint or in this project. Now, here's the thing. If some of you have virtual team members and you're thinking, okay, well, this is probably more relevant for co-located teams, people that are all in the same office, and you would be right. But the cool thing about technology these days is that, guess what? They've got Kanban and Scrum Boards online. They can be interactive, designed for virtual teams. That way, you're all still getting the value of that visual representation, and you're able to collaborate with your team even though they are virtual. I happen to think this is one of the coolest things that I learned when I went through my Scrum class, and I apply it to projects that are more long-term, like PMP types of projects, or that methodology of long-term planning, meeting requirements, following formal change control, all the way through shorter, faster projects where we've got work in progress constantly and a quick turnaround of, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks. Either way, having a visual representation of the work on a board using Post-it notes or magnets or whatever you want to use allows you to be creative with your team. It makes sure the team is seeing the accountability, working with the project. And by the way, not only is it fun and visual, but work is absolutely going to get done.